This episode is sponsored by the Paper Trails Greeting Company. Runners near and far, hear ye, hear ye. There's an amazing company that's dedicated to celebrating and encouraging every runner that laces up a pair of running shoes, and it's called the Paper Trails Greeting Company. This company offers something that's hard to replicate in a text message, and that is a physical, innovative, and genuine note of kindness that supports and celebrates every runner. The motto of the company is that every runner belongs, and each card proves that. The cards preach community among all runners, and there's a card for each season of a runner's journey. If you've run a new personal best, there's a card that celebrates that. If you suffered an injury, there's a card that lets you know that someone is thinking of you and that you'll come back even stronger. There's even a card that celebrates your significant running other. For me personally, I never felt like a runner. But then I stumbled across the Paper Trails Greeting Company, and it inspired me to pick up running again, and eventually it made me feel like I was a part of the running community. Go on their website, papertrailsgreetingco.com, and check out their incredible selection of cards. Use the code Lactic Acid in all caps for 15% off your order. They also have inspirational stickers and PDF printouts, so be sure to check those out as well. Then follow them on their social media page on Instagram, Paper Trails Greeting Co., as well on Facebook. And always remember to celebrate every runner and that every runner belongs. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, and welcome to Lactic Acid, the podcast where the takes are fresh, the ideas are ripe, and that makes us the best in the bunch. I am your host, Dominique Smith, and today, if you've been listening or if you've been looking through Instagram on our page, you will know that I said that there will be a couple special episodes this month. This is episode 2. Our first one was the Black History Month special, which was a lot of fun. Definitely check that out. And this one is one that I'm looking forward to. The guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. If you have listened to the first part of this show, then you would know that this show is sponsored by the Paper Trails Greeting Company, which creates greeting cards for runners that exhibits kindness and shows that every runner belongs. Make sure you check that out. But the host and the founder, the creator of the card company is doing something big, something bigger than herself, raising an issue and awareness to something that people, listen, I just learned about it when she was on the show. We've kept in contact and she's been very informative. And now she's on the front line trying to make a difference. She is none other than my friend, Miss Kristen Doornbos. Kristen, what's going on, fam? It's good to have you on the show again.
Hi, Dom. Thanks for having me again. I feel like I can call you a friend now, which is fun. So,
absolutely,
yeah, glad to be here.
So, since you've the last time you came on the show, and this will kind of lead us in, I found out something interesting that I honestly didn't think that I would, find out. There is, and he will be, our audience will get a chance to learn about him in a couple weeks. There is someone who likes Taylor Swift more than you do, which kind of leads me to the first question. Yes, he's a bigger Taylor Swift enthusiastic fan.
Okay,
Like he's
all right.
Swiftie. And so I was shocked to hear that, but I'm not going to ask you the superhero question because I've already asked that.
Okay.
But we're going to talk about this campaign that you launched.
Yeah.
And it got me to thinking, since you are a big Taylor Swift fan, if there was a song that would describe the nature of this campaign that you were launching, and if there was a song to describe you as the person launching the campaign, so two songs in total, which Taylor Swift songs would represent you as the campaign launcher and the campaign in general?
Oh, coming at me with all the good questions. The important questions in life. The campaign in general has got to be Shake It Off.
Okay.
Because haters gonna hate. And me as a person heading this up, oh gosh. That's the one that I'm struggling with.
So I'm not a Taylor Swift. I'm not going to say I'm not a Taylor Swift fan because I said that to a friend and it didn't end well. Like
Oh
Taylor,
no.
listen, I have no girl. You, if you want to sponsor this show, go ahead. Just email me at lacticacidpodcast@gmail.com. We can make that happen. But what about? I don't know too many. Maybe Fearless, something.
Okay, yeah.
Uh,
The
what?
title really fits. I think like all of her songs are love songs, basically, which is why I'm having such a hard time because I'm so single right now. I don't know. Can I just say I don't know?
That's true.
And
That's fair.
also, shake it off. Can I say that for both? Maybe?
Yes. You know what's
okay.
I asked you sort of a similar question when we first did the podcast. I forgot the exact question. I was like, maybe what
The superhero question?
No. In the rapid fire, I was like, what Taylor Swift song describes you? And you said Shake It Off. So
okay. There we go.
That is the theme. Okay, that's what we're gonna go with.
Yeah, that's the theme.
Kristen Shake It
Yes.
Off Doornbos.
I know.
Hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with that song. It has because it's coming at everybody, and that's what you're doing. You're coming at everybody. You're pulling no punches. You are fearless in this approach. So let's talk about this approach. Let's talk about this campaign.
All right, let's go.
You are putting the team on your back.
Mm-hmm.
You started the Equal Money for Equal Miles campaign. Mm-hmm. And so this is, I am reading this. It is pretty much is talking about ableism in the sport and supporting athletes with disabilities, giving them their proper piece of the pie, giving them the proper monetary value that they deserve. So I don't want to take too much of it and go in detail and everything, but yes, that is it. Let me see if my phone, okay, never mind. About that light, so you can't really see it.
Yeah.
But if you go on the Paper Trails Greeting Company Instagram page, then not only will you see the campaign and the brilliant slides that you did as a graphic designer, let me just offer my sincere
thank you.
how well done it was, but also the link to the petition is in her bio, so definitely check that. So I'm gonna give you the floor, fam. Go ahead and tell us what it is. Tell us what it's about.
Well, thank you. And actually the slides that I made were mostly just because of copyright reasons. I was like, well, I can't really use anybody else's photos, so I'm just going to make my own little like drawings here. And that's how we did it. So yeah, but the Equal Money for Equal Miles campaign is really about the US major marathons and giving equal prize money to the podium finishers in not only the wheelchair category, but the pair category as well. Because yeah, I mean, it's well known that, at the Boston Marathon or Chicago Marathon or New York City, those big marathons, the first few people who cross that finish line are awarded these huge sums of money. And I'm definitely not saying that they don't deserve that. I'm definitely not saying that they deserve less. Nobody's trying to take anything away from these open division, elite athletes who are finishing this race, in blistering fast times. But the issue here is that, you have the wheelchair category, which, these people are paid only a fraction of what the able-bodied athletes are paid. And then, the para category is even worse. The Boston Marathon actually is the only of the three that has a competitive division for para athletes. And they limit that field to about 40 athletes total. So that's men, women, amputees, visually impaired. And that's all. I mean, it's 40 athletes in all that get to compete in the Boston Marathon in that category. And then the New York City Marathon and Chicago don't even have a category for that. So yeah, I mean, Boston Marathon made a little bit of a splash in the media couple of years ago saying like, hey, we're creating this new category for runners, which is awesome. And we definitely need that. But yeah, the prize money is severely lacking there. So, the first place visually impaired runner who crosses the finish line gets a total of $1,500. And yeah, going to do the math for you. It's 1% of what the overall, winner gets. And so it's just crazy. I mean, the inequality and the disparity in pay is really, I think it really says a lot about like how far we have to go in our sport. And I'm trying to change that. So I put out this petition and it's gaining some steam and getting some signatures. And I mean, we've still got a couple months to Boston. So hopefully before then we can gain even more attention. But
so the one thing that I appreciate and respect about this campaign is that, see, if you listen to the first episode, I'm not officially, I don't feel like I am like in the running community like you are, running races, running marathons, running half marathons, in some respects running every day. And so yeah, when you can. But you're kind of in the trenches on this because it's, the running community is so large,
Mhm.
and you get a chance to meet new people and meet new faces and hear new stories. So I admire and appreciate that, someone in the trenches, if that makes sense, is starting this campaign because you have a better understanding of the story and what people are going through. So one thing that I did find interesting as well is that you did not start small. Like, you didn't say let's do these small marathons. You said, no, I'm going at the head. I'm aiming for the big piece of
Oh yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
Why did you start with such a lofty, I won't say a lofty goal, but why
It is.
I
You
knew you,
could say that.
but why? Because everybody has different, kind of, things. It's like, okay, we'll start small and then we'll start to gain some, notoriety, and then bam. But you're like, no, Boston, New York, let me talk to them. Let's get their attention. Why that approach to this campaign?
Yeah. So first of all, I will start with the disclaimer that I have not actually had contact with them yet. It is a weird situation where this petition is just kind of gaining signatures, and I haven't actually like delivered it to them officially, formally, at this time yet, because I'm still just trying to get the word out there and trying to get more people to sign and more people on board. But I will say there's already a huge movement of people doing this same kind of work within like the Olympics and Paralympics. And 2021, I don't know if you know this, 2021 in Tokyo was the very first year that Paralympians are now paid the same amount for a medal as Olympians, which is a huge deal. I mean, first of all, what took so long? 2021, yeah. And so first of all, what took so long? And second of all, like, it should have been this way all along. But like, this is already happening on the largest stage in sports. And so to expect that of these large marathons, I don't think is unreasonable. And then second of all, like, are you really going to make effective change in the running community at large if you're playing small? And if you're saying like, here's a 200 person marathon, let's start there. Like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go for the big ones that everybody knows, that everybody loves, that everybody watches, and say like, listen, we're going to target this first, and then hopefully seeing them set the example is going to trickle down to all of these other races. And that's kind of my hope. So
it definitely is going to get the attention because, I don't want to speak for anyone, but there have just been different causes, I can say in my life that, just going on where somebody came out and spoke. Um, and I was like, it feels good that someone, is raising, the issue. It feels good that someone is speaking out, not necessarily you're speaking for them, but I can get behind someone that does that. And it may help someone, gain the confidence to say, you know what, enough is enough. 2020, 2021 is the first time, and you and I talked about this, on different occasions. It's crazy, like with the Paralympic Games. I did not know that the Paralympic Games, honest to gosh, true, covering the sport. I remember in 2012 and then 2016. The only reason I knew that the Paralympic Games were going on because Allison Felix and Wallace Spearman were two of the people, the ambassadors for the games.
Oh, okay.
And they posted a picture on their Instagram account saying, we're at the Paralympic Games. Can't wait to, see all of these great performances. And I'm like, NBC has been boosting this since, God, 2 years. Oh God, see, I'm mad. I'm just throwing my life everywhere. 2 years prior to the games and everything, but you find out about the Paralympics like on the day before opening ceremonies.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's the injustice is truly remarkable. And so, kind of to your statement, it's about time. For you personally, two things, what gave you the courage to do this, and kind of the origin? Like, did you just wake up and was like, you know what, it's time?
Okay, so I don't know even if I still fully have the courage.
Girl,
but I'm just doing it scared anyways. I'm just doing it scared.
No.
But yeah, no, I really started this past summer when I was very into watching the Paralympic Games, starting to dig into a lot of these issues and realizing like, oh man, like this is pervasive in running, right? Like the sport that I love, that has always presented itself as, oh, running is such an inclusive sport. Running is for everyone. Running is, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you go. Everybody who runs is a runner. And like the running community is second to none. Everybody's so open and accepting. And yet, like here I was seeing all of this, real data about the inequalities that exist in running still. And I think it made sense for me to hone in on the disability part of it. Not only just because of my experience, but because, man, like we have so far to go. And so that was a big part of it. Also, what question was I even answering?
I think you answered it.
I started really looking into like, and I did some of the math of like, what is a disabled athlete at these major marathons taking home as a payday for these incredible performances versus some of the able-bodied athletes. And just seeing that just made me like realize that I can't just let it go. And I started actually messaging a lot of people and emailing people and trying to get in contact with some of these athletes and being like, hey, like who's heading up this fight to get, to have equal pay. And I did not get many responses just because like people don't know me, and it's hard to come in as like somebody random off of the internet and like, have a meaningful conversation about this kind of stuff with somebody who just isn't familiar with me. And so it was like, the more I asked around, the more I was kind of getting these answers of like, I don't really know. I don't know who's heading this up. And like, there's no formal, like, there's nothing formal going on to try and change this right now, that people knew of. And so, yeah, I mean, the more that I searched, the more it was looking like, okay, well, this is gonna be me.
And so first you answered the question, like before you forgot that you answered the question, you did answer the question.
Okay.
Um, the crazy thing to me is that you do not consider, like, you think you might be scared, but oh my gosh, like there is a significant amount of like sincerely to the whole presentation has been fantastic. Like when I first got it, and then the passion, like y'all, Kristen came ready with this. Like she had guidelines. Like there was this old show on Nickelodeon called Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, and Kristen came. Yeah, never heard of it. Go look it up. It's the best.
Okay.
She had like, listen, if they try you, this is what you need to say. If they think about trying you, this is what you need to say. This is what we're fighting for. Expect this. These are the numbers. This is what's going on. This is some of the, and I've told some people that I know about it, and they're like, boy, you lying. I'm like, listen, I got it. The proof is here, like in the pudding. So, you know, the fact that you spearheaded this, the fact that, you know, you've been in contact, the fact that you're doing this, going on these shows and all of this stuff, I think, you know, you have to channel your inner Taylor Swift, that shake it off courage mentality.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Because listen, faith is not with your feelings, it's with your feet, and you're definitely operating in courage and in faith. And I think it's just, you know, kind of paying off and paying dividends. And you know, we're just like 1 month into this. We're about a month, less than a
couple weeks.
Yeah. So tell me, how's it going? How is everything with the campaign going? The last time I saw, it was over 400 signatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've got over 400 signatures. It's really interesting to me as the organizer because I can download the entire file of every person who has signed. And there are some names on there that would be easily recognized. You know, I know of at least one multiple time, you know, Olympian, lots of people who are very big in the running community in terms of, you know, coaches, podcasters, well-known people. And it's not necessarily about who's who, but, you know, I think it is telling that we have signatures, not just from random people who don't know the sport of running, but from people who know the ins and outs of it, and from people who, like you said, are in it and doing the actual thing. So that's really encouraging to me. And yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to keep gathering steam, just trying to keep getting the word out in any way that I can. So I'm doing some podcasts today, and yeah.
Listen, I told y'all the first time she came on the show, and I'll tell you again, she's a big deal in these running streets. And so let's take a pause for this cause for a minute, and we're going to jump to a topic that you brought to my attention and something that you've been trying to raise awareness now for at least since I followed you. And that is ableism. And so ableism, I actually memorized the definition, and I learned how to, you know, fully spell it, and it was such a foreign concept to me. You know that there's an issue, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
Let me say, not you didn't know. I didn't know there was a name for it. And so it is discrimination against able-bodied runners.
Or discrimination in favor of able-bodied.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what definition that is.
My bad.
It's okay. I know what you meant.
Lesson learned. That's why mama say always write stuff down. And that's the thing I didn't write down. since you came on the show, it's something I've been thinking about, and it's something that I've been doing a lot of research on, and it's something you've been very gracious into pointing me in the right direction and always being willing to answer questions. And there's some questions that I don't even know, like, because this topic is so deep, and it crosses. That's the one thing I think surprised me, that it crossed so many boundaries. It crosses political boundaries because, it's the discrimination that these or disabled people go through, like the support, like there's nothing built in the workplace, for example, or it's just like, okay, something is deemed wrong with them, so we automatically think that they are not qualified. The one thing that I've learned on this show from you and from some other guests is that this happens more in the running community than people would imagine.
Yep.
And so bringing awareness, to this issue, and this was before the campaign. You told me that, this was something that you wanted to, bring about change to in general. Why did that strike you to be like, what, time's up for not talking about this in the community? Because it gives you cause to pause, like you know that this happens every day, but for you, just what in your mind was like, what, somebody else needs to know about this because somebody else is dealing with this. And so why did you feel the need, and still do feel the need, to educate the mass public about it? Because you're very sincere about it, and I know it's something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple layers to that question. I think the most simple answer is like having lived experience in that. But also, I kind of touched on this earlier, like running is always presented as like this super inclusive sport that's for everybody. And I kind of naively got into it thinking that. And then, it's almost like when you kind of like idolize someone or something, and then you find out that they're like really actually not perfect. Yeah. And it kind of breaks your heart a little bit. Like I felt like I went through that with running and with the running community, because, we all want that to be true of running, that it's this inclusive thing where everybody is equal and everybody is, celebrated and all that stuff. And like, that's what I built my business on. Right. And yet you find, not only through lived experience, but through all of these other ways that, there's a whole lot of ableism going on in running, and it kind of breaks your heart. You're like, no. Like I want running to be like the amazing, inclusive, thing that we all want it to be. And right now, like, is it really truly?
And that's the thing that still kind of gets me, like it's just running. It's just running. Like, how are we discriminating against running? You know what I'm saying? And it's just, maybe it's humanity. I was talking with Allie Feller, and I said, there's, and she kind of said it, there's just some days where she writes on her notes, I hate everybody, and feel better, because I was like, sometimes it feels like everybody sucks, which is obviously not the case, and she obviously doesn't hate everybody. But when you hear things like that, it kind of, like you said, it breaks your heart. Like it's just running.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just,
like, can't running be this like totally pure thing that's untouched by the world? And like, yet ableism has this way of just like sneaking in there and like seeping into every aspect of it, just like it does with everything else in the world. And I'm like, dang it, you ruined a good thing, ableism. Come on, like, I just wanted running to be amazing.
And you just want to run free and celebrate who God made you to be, because there's nothing wrong with any of us. You know, the Bible says we're fearfully and wonderfully made, which means that everything about us is wonderful. But, you know, there's just this judgmental standard that is just, which is, it still, as you can tell, it still kind of blows my mind, because I had no idea it was an issue. And so how do you, in this community, in the running community, and I have seen it make its way to the professional ranks as well, to be quite honest with you, how do we get better? How do we improve?
Man, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think on a community level, we need to be asking about, you know, how many running brands are sponsoring disabled athletes. No. You know, if people with disabilities are like 15% of the world's population, right? Like, do we see that 15% represented in professional athletes? Probably not. Like, there's maybe like 2% or 1%, you know? What about media coverage and the way that these events are promoting either the open division versus like the wheelchair division? I mean, in so many of these races, it's almost like the wheelchair race is treated as like, this is the thing that we have to get through in order to start the quote unquote real race, which is when the elites start. And it's like an afterthought, except, you know, it comes at the beginning, but it's just, there's so much. I mean, I could keep going. You want me to keep going?
Listen, girl, this is your show. Like I said, keep going. Let the Lord use you. That's what I tell people.
All right, let's think about like your local running store, your local running scene. How many, how accessible is the average local race? And, you know, how about your running store? Are there any people with disabilities at all working at your local running store? Things like that. I mean, it's worth asking.
Do you think, and maybe this is kind of a loaded question, people look at disabled athletes and they fit the definition of ableism, but not because they think that it's like, oh, we should throw them away, but there's fear on like what to do. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, okay, if like, how do we do this? And if you ask them, you know, oh, well, you're a disabled athlete, you're in a wheelchair or something like that, you know, how should we do that? Do you think there's some kind of fear? And it's more so ignorance, like, okay, we don't know what to do, so let's just not deal with it at all.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for walking with me on that.
We don't know what to do, so we're not going to do it at all. Or we don't know what this person needs as far as accommodations, so we're not going to do it at all. Okay. I feel like it's very, you know, at this point, it's still very reactionary, right? People don't ask, what do you need? How can we support you? What can we do better? They are operating under the same old archaic norms that they've always operated under, and it takes something like this of people with disabilities demanding better or asking for something and saying like, hey, this is what I need, or hey, this is unfair, or hey, this is how it should be done. And it's almost like they're just reacting instead of being proactive. And yeah, I think, that's big issue here.
Thank you for walking with me, because I was trying to figure out like how to ask that, because I'm trying to put my head into somebody who could, you know, like, is it fear-based or is it like it's not worth the inconvenience?
Yeah, I mean, any and all of the above.
you mentioned something interesting from a media standpoint. One thing I am noticing that, a lot of these, Paralympic athletes, at least the popular ones,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of promoting themselves in a sense in their own brand instead of having, like, I don't see Nike doing, the things for Tatiana McFadden as they're doing, for one of their runners and things like that. I don't see, them spotlighting them, in a meet, like pay attention, they're going to be running in this meet, compared to able-bodied runners. So from a media standpoint, what are some of the things that we can do to kind of change? In my head, I have, here are certain things that, we can do, but just in a realness conversation, I don't want it to be like, look at this disabled runner and look at how, their story is. And everybody has a story that you want to, share, and you want people to be inspired. But at the same time, I don't want people to be like, oh, well, look at this disabled body runner, because like I said, there's nothing, he may have a disability, but he's still human.
Right.
Don't want to devalue him as a human. And so how do we, from a media standpoint, promote, these athletes more, but also keep it in a humane way where you're not degrading them?
Yeah. And that's like such a hard, there's so much context to it. And it's such a fine line, between promoting, people with disabilities in sport, and then also not using them as like quote unquote inspiration porn.
Yes. I've never heard of that before.
Oh yeah. It's a whole thing. Google inspiration porn, and
No,
you're going to learn a lot. Yeah. So no, but I think the biggest thing is, you have to have representation,
right?
Or else people are never going to know that that's out there. But also, disabled athletes are not out here for pity. We're not out competing for people to feel bad about what we've been through in life. And so I think it's really important to not only have representation, but to tell those stories in a positive light, and to say, like, I think it's completely appropriate to say, like, oh my gosh, look at the amazing, incredible shit this person's doing. Sorry, I just swore on your podcast, but
there's been
I think it's
swear on this podcast that you can imagine. So go, let me say what you got to say, man.
Yeah. And it's really cool, actually. So NBC, or no, is it NBC that airs the Olympics and everything? Just announced it for 2022 Winter Olympics. They are putting the Paralympics on primetime for the first time in history, and like that is huge. That's amazing, and like that's a big part of kind of what we're fighting for, is not only having representation and having the Paralympics, but like having that seen as equally worthy of people's entertainment and awe. Like, does that make sense?
It does make sense, but let me ask you this. And so to those listening, I'm asking questions slower than usual because I want to get the wording right. And so Kristen, kind of sincerely thank you for, because I'm trying to gather my thoughts appropriately more so.
Yeah.
So thank you for kind of walking with me through these questions. How do you see, maybe this is just me, people do stuff because they get called out, but then to me it's not totally sincere. You're just kind of doing it because you got called out, instead of sincerely wanting, you know what I'm saying, to truly promote change. It's more of a I don't want to say this, but I have to say it. It's more of a PR stunt.
Yep.
Than a sincere attempt to unify, something that should not be split. How do you avoid that? in a sense? Is it through campaigns like what you're doing? Is it through you coming on podcast? Is it, just promoting? Is it getting more, people on podcast or whatever the case might be? Because unfortunately, it's just a big money show, or whatever the case might be. And so you get all these people's like, oh, they don't bring enough, money in,
right,
when money's coming from everywhere.
right, yeah,
there's enough money to go around that everybody gets a piece of the action.
yeah.
So yeah, how do you
avoid it being a PR stunt? I mean, get disabled people involved. Like, I can tell you right now, like, people are not going to want to be involved if they can sniff out a PR stunt. Like, if they don't feel that it's genuine, I don't think that it's really going to fly. And yeah, I mean, there's a saying in the disabled community, like, nothing about us without us. And you can put pictures of para athletes on your branding and stuff, but if you don't actually involve them in the process of what you're doing, like, yeah,
I would think that would mean that you actually have to make an effort to have disabled people not as consultants, but maybe leadership. Am I kind of off in saying that? Like putting
I agree with you. Yeah.
Putting them in actual
leadership. In actual roles in an actual company, or whatever. Like, it's not, we're not here to just consult and tell you how to be more inclusive. Like,
no, and
if you have 0 disabled people on staff, like,
and it's not, and I don't know if I told you this, but I was talking to, I could have said it on the Black History Month episode. One thing that I think about is someone I was having a conversation with years ago. The goal was to bring more Black people and more people of color to this conference. And so the next year was in Houston. And so they're like, we want to see a bunch of different people of color. We're going to raise money so that people can come and they can be a part of this conference. So I think I called my mom. I was like, but what happens after the conference? They still have to go back. We still have to go back to the same stuff that we put up with daily. And then I asked her, and then I actually asked someone there, I said, so is the goal to hire Black people because they're in these roles because they're Black? Because if I get fired because I did a bad job, then you're not going to want to hire any other person of color. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the same thing could be said for the disabled community, because and I say this because people aren't the nicest when they think they know everything. And so there's unfortunately this feel on, certain apps that it's like, okay, we're just making a fuss out of this because you just want to, get them in there and all of that. But it's not, we're not saying hire them because they're disabled, let them run in these races because they're disabled. It's just let them run in this race because they're faster than the majority of the field of able-bodied runners.
Yep.
And so I guess my question to you, and I asked this question, out of curiosity because of the guideline that you made about what to be ready for. What would be your response to that, to people who feel that way?
Feel what way?
That it's just a promotional thing to get more people in office and or not in office, well, in everything.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of this
specifically with the prize money. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
these are people doing incredible things and throwing down world-class performances.
Yes.
Honestly, like it does. It comes down to that. It comes down to performance and the fact that, you know, running a marathon is really freaking hard, really freaking hard. And if you're running a marathon with any kind of disability, that's even harder. And if you're running a marathon that you have to qualify for with a disability, and then, you know, you're running a really fast marathon, and like these people just keep upping the performance standard, and it's truly incredible to see like what humans can do. So yeah, I mean, I want to celebrate the heck out of that.
Yeah, and it's just, first of all, I think I can say it. People do suck. Some people in certain cases suck, because I've actually seen that comment more so the past week or two than I've ever seen before, to be honest with you. And I don't know, it just feels like society, maybe it's America, maybe it's society, I don't know. Going back to an original point, it just seems like, you know what, if it's something that we don't understand, then it has no value to us.
Yes.
But we don't take the time to actually try to get to understand like what's going on. Because like, here's why I was interested in this conversation, because, you know, I want to cover this from the standpoint, like, I don't view it as, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm disabled athletes. It's more athletes. It's more athletes. It's more perspectives. It's more stories and stuff. And so you don't. The more you learn, the more you can grow. And you mentioned the shoe companies and the shoe stores. I never thought about the running shoe stores. In a case like this, how do you present it to them? Just say in your opinion, is it just like, listen, is there something that you're doing that you just haven't promoted, or like, do you care? Or because it's just, some of your answers have gotten me to thinking throughout the show, like, you know, is the running community like the running community or the able-bodied running community? So for a running shoe store or someone like that, what would be your message to them?
I would say, you know, people with disabilities are the largest minority in America. And by excluding them, you are missing out on a whole lot of really cool people. And yeah, I don't know. I just keep coming back to like, people with disabilities do amazing things and are amazing athletes. And why does that not apply to running? And that's not to say that like every single one of these races in running stores and everybody in every community is doing terrible. Like, I think that there's a lot of progress being made. I think that like people are starting to talk about this kind of stuff. I did have, you know, a local women's road race contact me and just say, hey, like, we want to pay you, and like, let's chat about how we can make this better. And, you know, I mean, it's gaining some traction. I think that people are starting to wake up and realize. But
what are some of the things that you've learned throughout this entire process that's just helped you?
How much I don't know. The more I learn, the more I realize there's an entire world that I don't know anything about. And, you know, I have the experience of, you know, this is my experience, right? And like, the world of disability is just so vast and so diverse and so varied, that there's absolutely no way that there just is no groupthink. There is no groupthink when it comes to disability. And, you know, there's some like really basic 101 crap that we can go over, like, ableism sucks. This is what it is, but everyone's experience of it is so different. And so I think just holding space for like, man, there's a lot of people in this community that have completely different experiences than me. And I'm not speaking for anyone. I just am speaking up with them and saying like, we got to change some things here, and like let's start talking about it. So
what are some of the positive things that you've seen, to come out of this? Because it seems like you've, been able to interact with a lot more people. You've been able to work with more people. You've been able to meet more people. So it's like,
yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple little friendships that I'm really kind of like hold near and dear to my heart now. And I don't know, I'm even thinking about like going to Boston just to cheer and like cheer on, these athletes and some of the people that I know that are running. And I think that's so cool,
So you say you're going to cheer, but are you going to go to run one day?
Oh my gosh. Put me on the spot.
Listen, but here's the thing. Like,
okay. All right. Boston 2025. I'm calling it. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be running.
If you make it to Boston 2025, I'll go.
All right. Deal.
I will. Oh, I was about to tell you a lie. I was about to say I'll even try to run. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But no, I mean, like I said, Kristen, and I think that's the cool thing about it is, like I said, she's in the trenches because she's an actual, God, how many marathons have you completed?
Oh, 2.
That's enough.
Yeah.
God, that's 50, running 50.
One wasn't even real. One was just me and my GPS watch on a trail for,
See, that's bull. Now, is that the one that you ran for the pandemic?
I did, yes.
So you ran, that's a bunch of crap. That is a real marathon. 26 points. Nobody's running 26 miles for fun.
It was 13.1 miles out in a straight line and 13.1 miles back in the same straight line. So not the most fun I've ever had in my life.
My knees hurt. I asked you, back in the day when you came on the show, why running? But what is it about running? But what is it about the distance aspect? What draws you to run a marathon, to run a half marathon, to train, to, put yourself, and I'm asking this, it'll give a healthier respect to see what people are, I'm curious what people are thinking. Because like I hear people, I went on a nice 17-mile run today, and I was like, are you crazy? Like that is so bad. That's so that's just in my mind. But
I know.
What is it about the marathon that kind of drives you? And the reason I asked that, because we talk about some of these athletes, it's just incredible. It heightens the things that to think that they do this and and just the training they go through. So what is it that draws you to those crazy distances?
I think it's the mental toughness. Like I have not always, and I've told you this, I've not always been an athlete. And like as a kid, like when I did rec league soccer, I was like the worst on the team as a, whatever. And it just, I knew from a pretty young age that like I was never going to be an Olympian in any kind of ball sport, any kind of power sport, any kind of coordination sport. It just, I did not excel in that. The one thing in gym class I did excel in was the sit and reach test. That was my jam. Do you remember that? The sit and reach test? Yeah, that was the only one that I passed.
Okay.
But all the other ones I was just terrible. But anyways, I think that like, sports are such a weird, funny thing because there's usually a sport for everyone, right? Like I grew up thinking that like sports are not my thing, and it's just that I hadn't found my sport yet.
Yeah, yeah. That.
I if you throw a ball at me, there's no way I can catch it. But if you put me, 20 miles onto a marathon course, so I've already run 20 miles and I have 6.2 more to go. And you tell me to speed up and keep going. There's a certain amount of like mental toughness that takes. And I think my superpower is just being able to like keep going when I think I'm about to die. So I don't know. I think running is a lot more mental than it is physical, especially the really, really long distances. And I would love to run an ultra someday. I have a specific FKT that I'm like kind of eyeing at, like, ooh, when can I train for that? But
Is that like the 50-mile one?
What's that?
Is that like the 50-mile race or whatever?
Oh yeah, ultras have like 50-mile or 100-mile or 100K or whatever. I mean, there's some of those like last man standing races where people end up running like 340 some miles over like 4 or 5 days. I don't think I would do that, maybe. But I mean, the point is, like, there's just so much of sports that is not for me. And distance running is the one thing that is.
100K.
Yeah.
The only thing I want that has 100K in it is a check. So I'll I will. That is just hard to fathom, but it's
I know.
It's beyond impressive, like some of the things that the human body can do.
Yeah.
You talk about mental toughness, and so I find that really, really inspiring. And I want to switch gears a little bit to paper trails.
Mm-hmm.
It takes mental toughness to, well, and so let me ask you this question, because I'm starting to ask this question to different people. What is toughness in your definition? Because there's this old school, bone pops out of your knee, go back out and play. Toughness, or if you're struggling with something, you don't share it, you wait till it manifests itself into a health problem. And then instead of seeing a doctor, you die. As crazy as that is,
worst case scenario there.
Yeah, but
yeah.
No, and people, I know it's like funny, but unfortunately,
right.
I know that's how people deal with stuff. Because just it's just like, you don't want people to see you struggling. You are a successful business owner, and you are in the trenches of an issue that I have to say is long overdue in terms of people knowing about this. Like, it's 2022. Technically, I knew about it in 2021, the last day of 2021, but
yes.
that it took that long, for me to even know what that word was. It's just insane. And then you have such, I don't know, you have such these goals for the sport of true diversity, true unification and stuff like that. Unity. I don't even know if unification is a word.
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Own it. There you go.
That's my word.
Yeah.
Unification. And so sometimes that's a lot to manage and everything. What is toughness? What does it mean to you, Kristen?
So there's this saying that I have for myself, and I pull it out at mile 22 of the marathon. And I pull it out at the point of my long runs where I feel like my legs are trash. And I pull it out in some of the really tough moments in my business and everything else. I say to myself, this is as hard as it's going to get. And I think being able to tell myself that, like, all I have to do is get through this moment. Literally nothing can last forever. And at some point, it's either going to get easier, or I'm going to feel better, or I'm going to make it through it. And so I tell myself, this is as hard as it's ever going to get. And I think just being able to show up and do what I need to do in that moment, knowing like, okay, this pain isn't going to last forever, or, this hard thing in my business is not going to last forever. So I just try to stay really present in like the moment that I'm in, and focus on the task at hand and the one thing that I'm doing right now. And even if it's hard, I tell myself, like, this is as hard as it's ever going to get. And I can do this one thing, because then everything else after that, like, I'm never going to have to do this again. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's weird, but
it's not, because no, actually, I'm gonna write that down real quick. What'd you say? This is as hard as it's ever gonna get?
This is the hardest it's ever gonna get.
I'm writing that. I'm gonna go get that.
The hardest it's ever gonna get.
Be a canvas. You'll see it.
Even if that's not true, like, in my mind, like, I know, like, I'm probably gonna run another marathon at some point. I'm probably gonna go through more pain than I'm in at this moment on this long run. Like, whatever. But like, anything to just get myself through that one moment,
When you think about it, so one thing at least I'm trying to do is take it day by day. I've never been good at that. Somebody said today is the tomorrow that you were worried about yesterday, which is just crazy in itself, but I understand that. And so saying that this is the hardest that it's ever going to get is being present, like you said, in the moment. So it's like, okay, if I can overcome this at this moment, then I'm good, because you're not worried about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you could look back at the things you have overcome to help overcome the present thing that you're in.
Yeah.
Stuff. So when is that going to be available as a greeting card?
I never thought about that. Maybe I should do a new mantra series. I don't know.
I honestly, when you think about it, that is like mind blown.
I mean, so much of my fear comes from like thinking too far ahead, or thinking too much about like, what am I going to experience at mile 25, and if I can just take that window and like, like shrink it down, narrow it down to like this moment right now, right here. What am I doing today? This is the hardest it's ever going to get. And that's what gets me through.
That's a sermon. That's a sermon right there. Any pastors listening to it, you know who to credit for it. But no, I love that. It's something that I've never thought about, and I'm glad that I came up with that question. So, thank you definitely for asking. And then obviously for new people listening, I want you guys to kind of, get to know who's behind this campaign. A couple more questions, and then I do have a couple nice rapid fire questions. It won't be as difficult as the last time, I don't promise that, but so this was a question, and we kind of got to it a little bit prior, but it was something you posted on your Instagram account, Paper Trails Greeting Company. Make sure to follow them to ask any questions that you wanted us to get to. And so one of the ones that you chose was, paraphrasing, what do you say to the people who say that the field size is too big and that they don't generate enough money for them to be paid? Which I have to say quickly, I'm getting sick of that argument because people use that argument for the WNBA. And like I said, because they're like, oh, they don't get enough, but there's money. Money's coming from everywhere. So go ahead and answer that question if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct. Money is coming from everywhere. These marathons are not nonprofit organizations operating on some kind of shoestring budget. Like, they are bringing in millions and millions and millions of dollars every year. So, there is money, and the money is there, and they can afford to put it in an important place like this. But so I think that, there's kind of a double answer here. The first part I would say is like, we need to look at the double standard that exists, right? We need to look at the enormous double standard between, the prize money for the open division athletes, and then the wheelchair athletes and or para athletes. So, somebody like a Shalane or Des breaks the tape, and they get their, check for whatever it is, $100,000 or $150,000. They earned that based on their performance. And every person generally agrees, like, they earned it, right? It's based on performance. It's how you perform. It's not based on sponsorship. It's not based on, how much you personally bring into the event in terms of monetary value. It's not based on how well known you are. It's not based on your marketability. So, when somebody like a Sarah Sellers, for instance, in 2018, when we had like the terrible weather at Boston, everybody's freezing, and it just really shook up the field. And so she had an amazing day, and she is an incredible athlete, and she crosses the line second place. And literally nobody said, listen, she doesn't deserve that prize money because, she's not sponsored. Nobody said that. And rightfully so, because people understand that it's based on performance, right? Say it with me, Dom. It's based on performance. Yes. And then, right, you have the wheelchair athletes who are competing on the same course. They put in the same training. Yeah. And the first person that crosses the line is not getting the $150,000. They're getting what, 15 or 25 or whatever, fraction it is. And people say, oh, well, that's because they don't bring in the same amount of money. Yeah. And we have to just acknowledge, like, this is a huge double standard, right? We say it's about performance when we're talking about the open division. And when an unsponsored athlete who is relatively unknown crosses that line, we say, good for them. That's awesome. They deserve it because it's about performance.
Performance.
Right? Yeah. Performance. And that's something that is just not afforded to these athletes in the wheelchair division or the para division. We don't, if it was truly based on performance, they'd be getting equal pay, and they are not. So.
Ooh, I felt the energy in that.
Performance.
I said, y'all, she finna re-shoot that screen and stop me. But question, and then I'm going to give you a platform to go on another rant. Performance, not performance. See, the word is so ingrained that's not what I was going to say. Double standard, yes, I agree with that. But is it deeper than a double standard? Because that doesn't sound. So I heard a coach.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I say that, and I think it applies. It was a football coach, and it was a great point. He said, if it happens once, it's a mistake. Once or twice, it's a mistake. If it happens 3 or 4 times, it's a habit. If it happens more than that, it's something that's being taught.
Yes.
Yes. This sounds like a mentality problem, more so than a double standard.
Yeah.
And so, I think I asked this earlier, but in a case like that, is to change a mentality, do we need to get these, because, and this is just the truth, you probably have these athletes, they go run hills, they're out there running hills, to build and doing different courses. A person in a wheelchair can't necessarily do that. They don't have, just by nature and stuff like that. One can argue that their training is even more difficult in some respects. And so it's like the people who are arguing they don't bring in enough money. If we're talking about true equality in pay, shouldn't it be even, dubbed down? Okay, well, let's look at the different, how they had to train, or even how they had to get into the marathon. You mentioned earlier, for one of the marathons, only 40 people.
Yep.
In the disabled, 40 people. So so it's the largest minority. We don't even know the percentage. We can't calculate the percentage for the running, group, because that just keeps adding up every day to get a true percentage. You can have a ballpark range. Everybody knows about these major marathons. So you have to be one in that 40, and how it's just a battle to get to the 40. I guess maybe I'm reaching for the stars with this question.
No, I know exactly, like, you're getting at, this is a systemic problem, and this is not just, I truly don't think that these people who run, these major marathons are saying, we hate disabled people, we think they're trash. Like, I really don't think that's the case. I think it's just, this is the norm. This is how things have always been. This is the setup, and this is how our society operates. And it's way more nuanced than that. And I think we just really need to think critically about why some of these things are the case. Like, why is it that out of 30,000 people at the Boston Marathon, only 40 are para athletes? Why is that? And then what kind of message does that send to the media about how important it is to cover these athletes' stories, how important it is to show the wheelchair races on the national, or on the news when they are covering these races? Like, what does that say to the media? And then because they don't post anything, or they don't show any coverage of that, and they just kind of glaze over it, and then there's less attention, there's less money involved, there's less sponsorships. And so it's almost this like circular thing where like ableism kind of begets ableism. And it's almost like the system was set up this way so that nobody has to change it, right? Like,
and it's like they have all these, go ahead.
Yeah, they have all these excuses that they keep using, but like, well, gee, who limits the field sizes?
It's like, it's 2 minutes. How many thousand people run at that doggone marathon? Oh, Lord Jesus. Okay, let me call. But and that's the thing. It's like, okay, they don't bring in enough money.
Everything comes down to money. Oh, silly me. I forgot that people are supposed to be treated based on how much money they bring in. Like, that is just trash. And like, I don't know. I mean, we need equal prize money, yes, but we also need like better media coverage. We need larger field sizes. We need more running companies stepping up and sponsoring these para athletes and wheelchair athletes, and starting to bring in more money. But like, it's the entire system, and it's all interconnected. And well, I mean, I'm going after one aspect of it, but it all needs to change.
2 things about it. You can't just sponsor somebody. You got to invest, because you look at like shoe. So biggest thing in track and field, just general track and field, shoe sponsors. And who gets the cut? Brittany Reese, for example. Brittany Reese won like 42 gold medals in the long jump. Impressive. But does she get the comparison of a Nike athlete in another event? One of the hardest events in track and field is the pole vault. And so you got all these athletes who are doing incredible things in the pole vault. And here's the thing about the pole vault. If you're 13, 15, 20 feet up in the sky, however high they get, and that pole snaps and stuff like that, you can be in some trouble. It's a very dangerous, Lord, we pray that doesn't happen to anybody, but it's a risk. It's a high risk, high reward event. But they don't get the coverage that someone, who people, it's funny because in college we learned about this, and I forgot the term. So to my professors, I did pay attention, but I actually burned my notes like when I graduated.
Well played.
Yes, I hope nobody listening to this. But it talked about how there's media can kind of control what people look at.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yep.
control. Now, for me, here's the thing: I can't really control it, because here's the thing: when I turn on the TV, you know, if it's Shalane Flanagan or Tatiana McFadden, here's the thing: here's what I know: ESPN's going to show Shalane Flanagan, and they're going to have everything about that. But there's so many stories that, like, I didn't know about some of the stuff until you told me about a few athletes. And so it's systemic. And I think the way to change it is you need somebody in charge. Like, I think somebody, you got to get, and there's, I'll be honest, I'm still learning. There's so many things I don't know. You have to get someone in charge and to say, hey, you can't forget about these people. You got all these thousands of people. Nobody's going to notice an extra 100, 200 people who are qualified to run. And like I said, if you went through the X's and O's and you compare the times, they're going to run faster than able-bodied runners. What's another pet peeve or myth that bugs you that you want squashed?
Pet peeves and myths. Ooh, I think that, how do I say this? That disability has a single look, that you have to be in a wheelchair or you have to be an amputee in order to have a disability. That's a big one.
I hate that. Like, I don't know. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just maybe it's because that's how we're trained from the human mind set point of view. Lord help me say this. If I ran up on somebody who had a disability, then I mean, shoot, there are people in wheelchairs, well, they could be in a wheelchair because maybe they served our country and, they had some kind of accident. I forgot the football player who's in a wheelchair, but there's nothing wrong with him. His knees are just, kind of shot from being hit. So, and I think that kind of goes into ableism and the account, that I've, kind of learned a few things from, I have it here, on my phone so I can, share with other people. Is one that you sent to me, Disability Reframed.
Yes, I love this. I gave you homework and you completed it.
I did, and I did. I've looked at it for like the past 2 weeks. Literally ever since, or whenever you sent it. But I've kind of looked through the post, and because you never want to come across, and that's the thing about it. And if you think about it, like, some of the issues with ableism is not specifically tied to ableism, but it's human nature issues. It's because I see some of the issues in ableism, and then I just, gave you the example of, hiring. Why do you diversify? You don't hire me just because I'm Black. Because if you hire me just because I'm Black and I fail, you're going to be like, okay, well, he's like everybody else. Well, if you hire someone just because they're disabled, instead of like, okay, well, this person's qualified. Because at the end of the day, there's really nothing, like I said, we were fearfully and wonderfully made. There's nothing wrong with any of us. And I think some of the questions maybe that I have, and it's their deeper philosophical issues, but it's stuff, I guess, being taught at home. Because if you're taught to look for something in a certain way instead of the way it is, then you get the mess in which we have now. And stuff. Were you going to say something?
No, I think you're right. I think that, there's definitely this like societal construct that people with disabilities are inherently inferior in some way, or that they're like a problem that needs to be fixed, or that they don't live full lives, or that they're not full people as they are already. And like that gets taught, it gets, handed down from generation to generation. And yeah, time to talk about it.
So here's how we're going to end this bad boy. I did it for another show. So first, what's going on with Paper Trails? Can you tell us about the beautiful things that's going on with such a wonderful company?
Oh, goodness. It's been fun to just kind of hit the pause button on paper. Paper Trails is still just running just fine. It's just, I haven't been doing anything super crazy with it because of this whole petition. Like that's where a lot of my energy is going right now. And so, I am reusing a lot of old content and selling off a lot of old inventory, and it's been great.
We don't use that word here.
Yeah, no. So Paper Trails, I'm just kind of coasting right now. It's great. Nothing super special is really happening in February in, the running community. It's not like we have a ton of races going on or, stuff like that. So this is a good time of year for me to kind of just,
take a breath.
Yeah, take a deep breath. And
well, you did partner. You did the Valentine's Day bundle with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, come
on.
We can talk about. Okay.
Grayson Murphy is like the sweetest human. And she owns a business called RG Training Logs, which they're like a training log and calendar all in one. And I ended up seeing her stuff online somehow, and actually purchased one at the beginning of this year. And I like loved it so much that I was like, I reached out to her and I was like, I'm a fellow, small business owner and also in the paper goods space, and we should team up. And so, yeah, we did this little Valentine's bundle. So you buy one of her RG Training Logs calendars, and then it came with a Valentine's card. So that was cute and fun, but more so just like very encouraging to meet another small business owner and chat with her over Zoom and like, be able to commiserate about small business things and be like, oh my gosh, you totally get it. Like,
it's a nice community.
Yeah.
I was referring more to that. It's there's no old card in the Paper Trails Greeting Company because they're all timeless.
True. Okay. Yeah.
Message is as good in the winter as it is on Valentine's Day, as it is in the summer, because the message is always the same. We're trying to celebrate every runner, and every runner belongs. I'm telling you, you should get into coaching. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it, and I'm actually certified as a coach through USATF. But I haven't used it yet. And it's kind of one of those things where like, if I want to be a coach, then they all expect like X number of years of coaching experience, but then how do I get the experience if I don't coach anybody? And like, so anyways, right now, my fun project is I'm coaching my mom for her first ever half marathon. She is 61 now, and she is kicking ass. Like, this woman is incredible. I'm going to brag on my mom for a minute. She is usually like, she actually runs with me a lot. And over this past summer, she was like dropping me. She would, it was great. So anyways, she says to me, I want to run my first half marathon. And so, I'm coaching her for that. And it's been kind of my fun little experiment, but. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need updates on that when she wins like that half marathon up in Michigan.
Right.
Yeah, like that. So before we get into this little hot take session, I just have to say, if I ever did to my mom what you did to your mom with that Strava thing, I wouldn't be here today.
Should I explain this for the listeners?
You should. It's hilarious. I was like, that's your mom.
Okay. My mother is not the most technologically advanced person, so it's pretty adorable. She started running with me like a couple years ago and got into it. And I was like, you should get a running watch so that you can track all of your runs and stuff. And this past summer, I finally convinced her to get a running watch, right? So we get my mom a Garmin, and she's like in her 60s, so she doesn't know like how to set it up or anything. So I was like, okay, here, let me set it up for you. So I set up her Garmin, I teach her how to use it and like record all of her runs and everything. What she doesn't know is that I also created a Strava account for her, and I set all of her settings so that her Garmin basically just auto uploads all of her runs to Strava so that I can kind of spy on them and see, how much she's running and what she's doing and where she's going and all that stuff. So, and then I hide the Strava app from her home screen. So she doesn't really even see it or know that it's there. It's just kind of like running in the background. And yeah, every time that she runs, I, check the Strava and I can see her runs. And so, yeah, sometimes I use the data to sort of like mess with her. I'll be like, oh, so I bet you ran today. Oh, how'd you know that? Oh, so I bet you went and ran your favorite Easttown loop today. Oh, how'd you know that?
When I saw that, I was like,
pretty cute.
I like it because it's like it's accountable and somebody's looking out for you and stuff like that. So it was from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, can I do that? And I was like, oh, if I ever did that to my mama, boy, what's wrong with you? That is awesome. So we're definitely gonna be her over here at Lactic.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute.
Yes, we love her. Don't know, but shout out to Mama Doornbos. You ready for this last segment?
Sure, let's go.
All right, you got to give me 2 hot takes. We're going to split off. Hot takes that will not get us canceled.
Hot takes that will not get me canceled. You made me do this the other time.
I did, and
hot take that won't get me canceled. If you're a coach and you use the phrase "never miss a Monday," you need to stop coaching. Yes. People just, never miss a Monday is like, I feel like it's just rooted in diet culture and not actual human performance. Mm-hmm. Because, our bodies, obviously, they know stress. They know, when we're tired, when we're hungry, when we're injured, all those things, but they don't know what day of the week it is. And if you happen to need a rest day on a Monday, you take it. If you happen to need an unexpected day off on a Monday, you take it. It doesn't matter that it's a Monday. Just do it. Like, I really don't believe that you can be a serious running coach and use that phrase.
Because everybody's bodies are different.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, the best ability is availability. So if you're working yourself to death and it's on a Monday, Mondays are hard for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so Mondays should be like a national day of rest. Okay.
I know. My coach always has me take a rest day on a Monday, and it's great. I love it. Okay. Like, I get to start my week off with, I usually end up, doing a bunch of other stuff, but
okay,
it's great.
So you got to give me one food hot take.
One food hot take.
Yeah, and then I'll give you mine, and then we'll get out of here.
Macaroons are the grossest thing.
Ooh.
They're all like spongy and weird texture, and people make them into like strange flavors like lavender. Like, I don't want a dessert that tastes like lavender. I don't want a dessert that tastes like a plant and feels like a sponge in my mouth. Just nothing about that sounds appealing. Macaroons are disgusting.
Okay. Okay.
Hot takes.
That is, girl, that's Florida hot. Dang, that like set, because I agree and then I disagree. A chocolate macaroon, though, will set you free. A Nutella dipped chocolate macaroon.
I don't know.
Okay. So let me.
There's still the weird texture thing. Like you
That's
just can't
fair.
get rid of that. Yeah.
That's fair. They're little fake. They look like Krabby Patties, but you know, they're just sponges. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rattle off two for you. Nutella is more nutritious for you than peanut butter.
Okay.
And a boneless chicken wing is a chicken nugget and not an actual chicken wing.
Okay. Explain that.
So a boneless chicken wing. Okay. So obviously you're familiar with chicken wings, right?
Yes, I am.
I just have to make sure. Being a chicken enthusiastic person, even though I have a banana above my head.
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially your chicken wing has the, you have the flats and you have the drumsticks. And so when someone gives me a boneless chicken wing, they take the bone out of it. So what is the difference between a boneless chicken wing with sauce on it and a Wendy's chicken nugget or a chicken nugget from an established location? People like Chick-fil-A, people like PDQ. It's the same.
I guess when I think of chicken nuggets, though, I think of like something that's been in like a meat processor and like ground up and then like formed into this artificial patty shaped thing and then dipped in the breading and whatever. So that's my mental like picture of a chicken nugget.
So McDonald's is what you're thinking of.
Yeah. And if you have a boneless chicken breast, it's the meat is still intact and stringy inside there and whatever. I don't know.
Okay. I listen. So here's the thing. I got to give you props because that was a fair rebuttal that I disagree with, but I respect how you break it down like a science. I mean, you went like old school. Right. Listen, they come from a factory and they go to a machine that's like soft serve live streaming and breaded. So mad respect. We can agree to disagree, even though your coach's take was spot on. I'm gonna give you the last word, Kristen, before we wrap this bad boy up with a bow. Tell them, I told them earlier in the show, where can they sign that petition and what are some of the things that they should look forward to, the people that is?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find it, I would say, is go on Instagram and look for papertrailsgreetingco. The link is in my bio there. And then there's also, you can see the graphics and everything and swipe through and just read all the information on that. So yeah, that's where you can go. And
Kristen, you are a scholar and a saint, my friend. I appreciate everything that you're doing to bring awareness to this issue, for being so patient with people like me who have questions and were kind of hesitant and asking, trying to make sure you ask them correctly. And just for being a voice to the running community, for the running community in this issue. And so you heard where you can find her on Instagram, Paper Trails Greeting Co. Definitely make sure to follow them. Be sure to follow us. So we are on Instagram, Lactic Acid Podcast. Ooh, I should know that by now. Lactic Acid Podcast, Twitter. Lactic Acid _pod. Go on the website, lacticacidpodcast.org. We're on TikTok. Now, here's the thing. I don't know how to use it, but you can still follow me on Lactic Acid.
That's so cool.
All right. I posted one post and like 3 weeks, don't know how to use it, and it will stay like that until I figure out. So, but the more followers I get, the more it makes me feel better about myself on TikTok. So we got to get that number up. So if y'all can do that for a brother, I would appreciate it. We're on YouTube. Just type in the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Google Podcast. You can definitely hear us there. You'll definitely hear more about Kristen. Remember, you get 15% off on her greeting cards if you use the code Lactic Acid. And if you are a sponsor looking to sponsor the show, Lactic Acid Podcast at gmail.org or gmail.com is where you can email me. Would love to talk with you, would love to work with you, would love to bring your brand to our show. Until the next time, we will see you later.